Welcome, everybody. My name is Kelly Lindsay. I'm the Chief Transformation Officer for Luminary and the President and CEO of Indigenous Works, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm speaking to you from Pima and Pimosh territory. So where am I in North America? I'm in sunny Phoenix. So great to be joining you from here and taking you through today's orientation to the Business School Engagement Survey. So today what I want to do is I want to introduce you to the team. I want to apprise you of Luminary's journey leading up to the Strategic Science Fund. An overview then, we're going to go a deep dive into the Business School Engagement Survey and talk about the application. The survey is the instrument. How is it going to apply and the value to you as business schools and to our Indigenous businesses and communities? So let me start with our great team. So we have Terry Lynn Morrison, who's come on board as our National Program Director. She just started January 20th. Morgan Murphy joined last May, Manager Programs and Membership. On April 1st, Tasha Brooks, who's with Royal Roads University, will be joining us part-time as the Senior Research Lead for Indigenous Knowledge and Curriculum. Craig Hall is part-time with our VP of Strategy and Innovation. And then we got Adam Potras out of Regina. He's our manager of the Knowledge Keeper website, which is under development, but will be ready this summer and in our IT systems. Subash is our CFO and general manager, and then myself. So there's the team that we've got to work with you, the business school community and the academic community over the next 4.5 years. So first of all, the highlight, the Strategic Science Fund. This initiative, we received $4 million over a 5-year period, started with a successful letter of intent, then a full application. Many of you provided those letters of support and then the award. So this has really empowered us to build the team and start to build the programs and services. Now, for those of you that are not familiar, let's do just a quick review of the Luminary journey. So this timeline captures it all. It actually goes back to around 2019. And Craig and I, did a concept document. And it was called A National Initiative to Increase Research Collaboration and Indigenous Business Innovation. And that eventually evolved into Luminary. So we worked closely with MyTax. We did a bunch of outreach. We did some workshops and forums across the country. And then that fall in 2019, we did a focus on research and innovation. Is this something that could really engage our community so we could transform our Indigenous economies? The idea stuck. In 2020, 150 people signed on to a planning initiative, 150 Luminary charters from the academic community, business schools, Indigenous business, NGOs. And they signed this charter, which was the Charter Partners Planning Initiative to Advance Indigenous Innovation. Then through 2021, which is the COVID period, we co-created the Luminary strategy. And Dr. Marie Delorme and I facilitated this. I think we had like 14 online sessions, 2 national gatherings, and we now had a strategy with 150 partners. We didn't have any money from the federal government, so we were doing projects. We were doing consulting projects. We did work in agribusiness, for example. We had $500,000 from the Protein Industry Council, Nutrient and Ag Canada. We did work with Indigenous talent. We did work with Lab to Market. And so we were doing projects from 2022 right up to 2024. And then the big announcement, we got the Luminary Strategic Science Fund. So there it is. It's sort of been a 5-year journey. And it's now allowed us to really ramp up and address why you all are here, the engagement gap. As my friend Don Madabi Leach, who's the chair of the National Indigenous Economic Development Board and the CEO of Wabatech would say, is that full reconciliation will not happen without economic reconciliation. So this is a real focus on economic innovation that leads to well-being. And when we were doing those workshops back in 2019 and 2020, we listened to the community members. We heard and had feedback. We produced video vignettes, which we can share with you, but there was a jaded view of research. It's been done to us and on us. The research systems are broken. We need new Indigenous-led initiatives, nothing about us without us. But there is also some excitement to change that picture, that we need to go from the deficit, dismal side of the ledger to grow green and healthy economies, communities, and people. So that's the beauty of the focus. Research and innovation is to generate those healthy communities, economies, and people. So the Luminary SSF objectives, we can give you a full listing of these, but this is a short summary. It is really the focus here is increasing research and innovation collaborations with Indigenous business and communities on Indigenous economic priorities with the business, school community, and others, agriculture, engineering, medicine, and so on. Increase knowledge and competencies of all the players. Produce new knowledge assets, and knowledge can be a multiplier and an accelerator. Increase Indigenous business student and research talent. I mentioned Dr. Tasha Brooks, she just got her PhD in the fall. We have less than 20 Indigenous PhDs and DBAs in this country, whereas we have hundreds of Indigenous lawyers with PhDs. So there are gaps to close, and we want to really help do that by building business school curriculum. Curriculum and pedagogy can be a pull factor to attract people to business education and business research. And indigegogy is a term by an elder, Max Solis out of Eastern Canada, and he talks about Indigenous ways of knowing and doing. So even new language and concepts will come as we move forward. Number 5, conduct a business school engagement scan, which is why we're here today. And finally, increase the capacity, talent, knowledge, and cultural competencies of business schools, all the players in the ecosystem, post-secondary institutions, NGOs, Indigenous businesses, economic development corporations, and so on. So there it is. There's the focus, and it is about having this ecosystem work together to collaborate to achieve those objectives from all of these areas. So now I would like to introduce and turn it over to Terry Lynn Morrison, who's going to take you through now a deeper dive into the survey itself.
Thank you, Kelly. Good afternoon, everybody. So what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to introduce the Business School Indigenous Engagement Survey a little deeper. We're going to talk about why have a survey. We'll give you a little bit of history about the Luminary Business School Working Group that's been operating since 2023 to today. We will talk about the survey structure. You'll get to meet Malatest, our partner in the survey, and they will walk you through the survey structure. We also have a Luminary support team for business schools that's available, so we will introduce them. And then we'll talk about the engagement survey report and how the engagement data, the information and knowledge will accelerate curriculum, research, and engagement strategies. Oh, just trying to get to the next slide. There we go. Oh, we have somebody in the waiting room that we can let in. All right, so why do a business in a school Indigenous engagement survey? First, the survey will provide a comprehensive picture of Indigenous engagement across business schools, looking at practices, strategies, curriculum, research, networks, and partnerships. It also gives us a benchmark so that we can see where we are now, we can identify gaps, and we can track our progress over time. One of the most exciting outcomes of this initiative is the role of knowledge mobilization. We're not just gathering information, we're creating a learning multiplier. That means turning data into shared insights, resources, and innovations that can be scaled across institutions to accelerate change. Through this process, we're already seeing new networks and collaborations beginning to form. These emerging connections between schools, communities, and researchers open the door to richer, more impactful engagement. When we're talking about cost-effective models of economies of scale, we're also exploring new models for curriculum design, research, and community partnerships that are cost-effective, scalable, and highly impactful. By working collectively, business schools can achieve far more than they could in isolation. And this is a true example of economies of scale and shared values. Growing the business school brand and impact. So finally, this work strengthens the business school brand, demonstrating leadership, relevance, and commitment to Indigenous inclusion. It enhances our values to students, partners, and communities, while also deepening our impact on economies, industries, and social outcomes. This isn't just about reporting data. It's about building a shared future where Indigenous engagement is woven into the very fabric of how business schools teach, research, and lead. So we want to thank our Luminary Business School Working Group, and we will provide a list of the participants in the next slide. They've been hard at work on this engagement survey since 2023 to now. Oh, if we can just go back one slide. And we also want to thank our collaborators, so the Association of Canadian Business Schools, the Business School Association of Canada, and Polytechnics Canada, who have worked with us to get this survey out to all of the post-secondary institutions, colleges, and institutions across the country. Moving on to the next slide. Our business school working group, as you can see, this was not done in isolation. There's a large number of deans from across the country, directors, students that were involved in shaping this survey. A lot of work and thought went into it. So we want to take a moment to recognize all of these people. I won't go through the names, but the PowerPoint is available if you want to have a deeper dive into that information. But thank you all for your hard work and being involved in this working group. And then when we're talking about the working group and what they've done since 2023, well, the journey that we've taken so far and where we're headed next as we bring this Indigenous engagement survey to life. Our starting point was in 2023, where the terms of reference were established. That gave us a shared foundation, clarifying the scope, purpose, and values driving this initiative. In 2023 and 2024, we were in a design and build phase. From there, we moved into the design and build phase. We developed core engagement concepts, conducted an environmental scan, and began designing the framework. Then in 2024, we brought in Malatest, our partner, a well-respected research and evaluation firm, to help us translate our concepts into a professional, secure, and accessible online survey tool. In 2025, early this year, I mean, it's already the end of March, so 2025 is going by quite quickly, but we finalized the ethics. So the ethics were approved, which is a critical step to ensure the process meets institutional and community standards of care, confidentiality, and respect. And then we did the testing of the survey with university and college business school deans to get some feedback and to see where we can improve. Finally, on March 17th, we launched the survey, sent to business schools and deans across the country. And that's going to remain open until May 16th when the survey closed, giving schools 2 full months to respond and contribute their insights. And then in August and September, we'll deliver tailored engagement reports. These will offer data-driven insights to help each business school identify opportunities, celebrate strengths, and plan for meaningful growth. We can talk a little bit more about what's going to be in the report, but essentially for your participation, you will get a report that, while all the information collected will be confidential, there will be an aggregate of the information. So you will get a report that shows where your school lines up against that of across the country. So the timeline represents a thoughtful, collaborative and strategic process designed to ensure that the outcomes of the survey are not only useful, but transformative. On to the next slide. We have the support team for our business school. So while you're doing the survey, if you have some questions about how you should answer a question, what information you could provide, we do have 2 resource people, Michael Mahalahitz, I have a hard time saying that last name. I think I got it right. And Dr. Tasha Brooks, who's with us today, who are available to walk you through any of those type of questions that you may have. And then for any technical database questions or issues, if you're having a problem logging in, if you can't save your data, or if there's something that happened on a technical level, we have our partners at Malatest, so Derek Hughes and Daniela Garcia, who you're going to hear from next, who are available to provide you with some troubleshooting or any type of guidance that you need for any technical questions. So now I'd like to introduce Derek and Daniela from Malatest, who will come on and talk a little bit more about the mechanics of the survey.
Yeah, thanks, Terry Lynn. From my perspective, I think I'll just mention 2 things before I'll let Daniela talk about some of those mechanical issues that you mentioned. The first is, well, we recognize that when you're providing potentially sensitive data like this, you might be wondering, where is this data going? Is it being stored in some server in China? The answer is no. Kelly's brought us on, so we're a respected Canadian company that has a long track record of providing these kind of services to government and government-funded NGOs across Canada. So the data is stored in Canada. It's, if you have any questions around how the data is being protected or anything like that, of course, we're here to reassure you about how that sensitive data is going to remain protected at all times. The other thing I'll mention is that, you can see that Kelly's built a pretty strong team here, has lots of experience with Indigenous knowledge and curriculum development. We're here to add to that expertise by showing up with long history of experience in designing and hosting and analyzing and reporting data just like this. So if you have any questions about our role here, of course, we're here to answer those questions as well. If there's no questions immediately, then maybe I can turn to Daniela, who can talk through some of these details of what we've been doing behind the scenes.
Thank you, Derek. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the survey design. This survey was conceived to be a longitudinal survey because it aims to assess the level of Indigenous engagement over time, and meaning that the data will be collected regularly to the same institutions. That is the idea. So the target of the survey are not specifically people, but institutions or business schools specifically, rather than these individuals. Collecting benchmarking information in this first version of the survey on Indigenous engagement at an organizational level. There is a multi-informant design, and what this means is since different components of the survey are best answered by different people or people with different roles within these business schools, it follows a distributed response model where multiple respondents contribute to complete the questionnaire. And it's self-administered, so this means that the survey is designed as an online questionnaire that respondents complete independently at their convenience. They can start and then leave it like that and then come back at a later time. So completely free and flexible. Using this online survey portal, and each one of the respondents of the business schools is going to have a unique ID, right? And that is some of the features that I also wanted to mention of this survey. There is this modular format. So what does this mean is we have different modules for different sections of the survey that it can be responded as I just said about different people, and it's completely flexible. Each institutions will have a unique ID, and there is a version control and tracking. This means that you are going to get some errors if you responded something that is far off. So you are going to have some leads, okay, this is not right, so I'm going to come back to it and make sure that I did it correctly, and you're going to be looking at the menu and see that you finished that module or not. So it is going to be very user-friendly. So we are going to have data validation and quality checks when needed. Next slide, please. So how this questionnaire was designed during this time that Terry Lynn and Kelly were discussing earlier. So this was an iterative and multi-stage approach. We were very careful in designing this instrument in a way that it was co-designed with these multiple people and the larger group, as well as a core team of researchers. So in a very initial stage, we review past surveys, of course, identify the key thematic areas, and draft new questions for those spaces that we thought that it wasn't enough questions available for other sources, or we really need to know that information. And in stage 2, we did internal revisions, several rounds of revisions with a core team. And then we also did revisions with a broader Luminary working group. In stage 3, we seek institutional feedback and validation for business school deans. And also we went through another round of additional revisions, right? And next, we passed through a stage 4, we could say, with the survey programming and testing. So we implement the survey in a software called CallWeb. That is what Malates use, and it is a complete online data collection system. And if you have any questions, you can let us know later. And then this process also had multiple testing phases, ended in with a final review, right? That ended up with this stage 5 and the survey deployment that you are going to be using and completing very soon, hopefully. Next slide, please. So, and this is the first, one of the first parts of the survey. So you are going to find this structure, this tool that will be used to determine the present level of Indigenous engagement, right? And you are going to see this menu layout, where each of these sections, the business school details, post-secondary institution demographics, and so on and so forth, are going to be different modules that you can access at different times and with different people within your schools. And you are going to have the chance to play with these models at different times. So this is what you are gonna see when you start, and you are gonna click in some of these models and then finish the survey at your convenience. And I think now is the turn to come back to Terry Lynn. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniela and Derek. So now that we've walked through the purpose and process of the survey, let's talk about what comes next and how we'll put these findings to work in meaningful ways. So when we're talking about new knowledge mobilization and sharing, we're going to focus on knowledge mobilization. This means that the survey's insights won't stay static. They'll be shared across institutions in a way that are actionable and collaborative. We'll build platforms for sharing strategies, stories, and solutions, so one school's success can become everyone's starting point. When we look at curriculum collaborations and attracting Indigenous students, we see enormous potential in curriculum collaborations. By using the data to identify gaps and opportunities, schools can co-develop programs that are more inclusive, more relevant, and more attractive to Indigenous students. So this isn't just about adding content, it's about rethinking how we design learning environments that affirm Indigenous perspectives and leadership. And in terms of innovation and research collaborations, the findings will help spark new research and innovation partnerships, whether it's co-creating research agendas with Indigenous communities or forming cross-institutional networks. There is a chance to move beyond isolated efforts and towards more scalable shared impact. So the survey isn't just a reporting tool, it's a launchpad. These findings will drive connection, innovation, transformation across curriculum, research, and engagement strategies. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in depth. So we go to the next slide. To give an example about how we can accelerate knowledge mobilization and exchange networks. Just in January, my third day on the job, I was off to Arizona for the Luminary Indigenous Innovation Summit in Phoenix, where we had 42 delegates, including business school deans, Indigenous academics, and businesses and NGOs, come together and talk about how they can collaborate and advance their research agenda. So these are opportunities that, because of Luminary are happening, and because of the work that we're doing to engage with business schools and to see where they're at through this survey, we're able to keep advancing these agendas. So there's other opportunities that are going to be coming up in terms of engaging Indigenous businesses and economic organizations. So for example, in May of this year, there's the NACA Prosperity Forum. That's the National Aboriginal Capital Corporations Association. Luminary will be there and doing a presentation promoting the opportunities to collaborate with universities, business schools across the country on research and innovation agenda. There's also later in the year in November, the Indigenomics on Bay Street conference, and there's a number of other national Indigenous organizations that host conferences across the country where there's opportunities to accelerate this knowledge mobilization and get people excited about the work that we're doing together here at Luminary. I'm going to pass it back over to Kelly to talk about the next examples.
Sure. So folks, you can see, as Terry-Lynn said, the survey is the instrument, it's this application. So with this knowledge, we're going to be able to see through the engagement profile, what's the current levels of activity when it comes to Indigenous curriculum, courses, partnerships, pedagogy in terms of episodes that might be used. So that information, as we said, we're going to be able to mobilize and share that, but it'll also identify gaps. It'll identify priorities. So maybe we can now collaborate on things like Indigenous governance or international business. So the beauty is the survey is going to inform, and that will lead us to develop curriculum webinars and seminars and training. So the webinars will be more about awareness. You get to see who's doing what, how they're doing it. We want to develop Indigenous curriculum protocols and approaches. How should it be built, designed? And we'll be relying on our Indigenous academics and our allies to build these guidelines and protocols as we look at the design and build stage of curriculum. And of course, we'll develop these curriculum networks. Each of you have different expertise in areas. And so this is an evolving, ongoing process, but it shows you we'll be able to measure the change in 2025, 26, right through to 2029 to show how we can mobilize and move the curriculum agenda along. So again, the impact, it's going to benefit all students. All students need to know about the Indigenous economies and the $50 billion current economy and how it's growing to $100 billion. And it needs to enrich and guide, especially in this Trump era. We need to be looking at how this is going to help build a stronger and better Canada, and it will. It's going to increase the engagement amongst the Indigenous business community and the academics from other faculties, our business schools, research agencies, and NGOs. So there's one example. How are we doing it? You know, we have done some work with some of you. We worked with Edwards on decolonizing and indigenizing the business school curriculum. Dean Mike Smith from Dalhousie, last August, we did a forum with Atlantic Business School deans. We presented to many Indigenous business classrooms and MBAs. Here's one with SFU, the Business Leadership Executive Program. So we'll be able to really advance and work with you to say, what are the types of collaborations and networks that we can build to accelerate though and achieve those objectives that we shared with you earlier. The third one is innovation and research collaborations. So again, we want to look at through the survey, what's the current state? Who's doing what? What's the picture? What are your priorities? Who would like to work in different areas of Indigenous research and innovation? Same recipe, we're then going to have research webinars, seminars, and training. And that will lead to then designing and building research collaborations models, and really to pull down millions of dollars from those research agencies towards Indigenous economic research priorities. And it will stimulate a lot of multidisciplinary research. We see business schools being able to pull agriculture, engineering, medicine, anthropology, many areas. These will stimulate multidisciplinary research, our legal friends in the law schools. And so this will be a pretty exciting part of the work ahead. And what will be the impact? New research partnerships on Indigenous-informed research activities with the appropriate guidelines and protocols, increased engagement, and we're going to transform our economies and increase well-being. So I think I had the opportunity to go to Australia to present on a panel at ANZAM. ANZAM is the Australia-New Zealand Academy of Management. These are all the business schools from Australia and New Zealand. Got to be with my friends, Dr. Jason Mika from Auckland University, Dr. Michelle Evans, who runs the Dilla Dewis School at Melbourne, Emma Olsen, who's Kauri woman with the University of Queensland, Brisbane. And so again, this has international reach, and we do and have an international advisory body to advance Indigenous research and innovation. And what's coming up in May is a colloquium. So ASAC, we're going to be announcing a partnership with Andre Laplume, the president of ASAC, the Administrative Sciences Association of Canada. And there's a colloquium. And this colloquium has been running for 3 or 4 years. And it will be on May 16th, a colloquium for advancing Indigenous business research by learning from experience. And then what we'll be looking at is what we can do with, for example, all the ASAC members from this May to next May to continue to advance the agenda. I thought we'd show you just some other things. I mentioned to you from 2021 to 2024, we were animating and implementing a number of projects. And one day in our Luminary Charter Partners, I said, does anybody have an idea that is as impactful as the fur trade? And Dr. Stephen Cross said, well, seaweed's kind of important. Now remember, Kelly, Lindsay is a guy from Saskatchewan. I know nothing about seaweed. $15 billion industry. It's growing 8% a year, could provide 10% of the world food. And so we started this whole knowledge network. We started to learn more, and then we had webinars. And from the webinars, we did seminars. And then that led to a network. And in the fall of 2024, we ran a forum in Nanaimo on October 11th. We leveraged funding from different foundations, and McConnell came in with a commitment of $457,000, so about $150 a year, because they liked the focus on economic reconciliation. One of the participants flew all the way from Australia. Dr. Selena McGuire came from Australia, and she brought with her a kelp bowl, thousands of years old. These kelp bowls were used to carry water and berries. But they've taken the intellectual property, they worked with academics, and they now have a product where you can put drops of kelp food into your household plants. So I just thought this was a really good illustration that there's many sectors of the economy, from AI to carbon markets, food, that we want to stimulate and create these multidisciplinary research collaborations. But this is a really practical example of something that's emerged over the last 3 years. And I think finally, we want to acknowledge our friend, Elder Albert Marshall. He spoke to our group in around 2021 and talks about two-eyed seeing. How do you value both traditional and Western ways of knowing and doing that benefit everybody? That's the spirit. And that's really one of the values that we embrace as we move forward in working with you. What do you see here when you look at these pictures? Snowshoes, igloos. Over on the right, the boomerang. Far right is porcupine grass, which is used to make thermal resins in Australia. The Enoch goggles. Well, these are all examples of innovation. Innovation is not new. Indigenous people around the world have been innovating for thousands of years. And it's always been to advance well-being. And so this really is about Albert Marshall's teaching that how do we now work to align, mobilize, and connect traditional and Western knowledge to create and transform our economies, our communities, and our people, and achieve new levels of well-being. And of course, that's why you matter. Business school leaders and Indigenous business leaders, you're going to make this happen. Terry Lynn, over to you to conclude.
All right. So looking ahead, as we wrap up, here's a quick summary of where we are and where we're headed. In the summer of 2025, we're excited to be launching our website. Luminary is still, even though there's been a number of years of work behind it, the team here is still fairly new. So we are getting our website. We're working on that right now. It'll host the survey resources, reporting tools, a space for knowledge sharing across institutions. So we're really excited to get that up and running. We're also launching our academic membership program this spring. And that'll create a formal network for collaboration, support, and continued learning between schools committed to advancing Indigenous engagement and reconciliation in their institutions. So stay tuned for that. And right now, what our next steps are, our May 16th deadline of completing the survey. Your input is essential. Every response helps paint a clearer picture, capture a more complete picture of Indigenous engagement across business schools. So we're really counting on you to participate in this. And then, if you could share this webinar, if there's others in your network that weren't here today, but you think would be really interested in this information, we're going to provide a recording of this, and we'd love for you to share it. The more people who understand the why and the how behind the survey, the more meaningful the outcomes will be. And then, of course, reach out if you have any questions. We want to support in any way that we can, so please don't hesitate. We're here to help, and we want this to be as smooth and collaborative as possible. So on the next slide, you will find our contact information, and we did share the Luminary engagement support team that's available to help you as well. Some dedicated resources there, so take full advantage of it. And we'll go into a question and answer period now, so thank you.
Super. So listen, thank you very much. We are going to close the webinar and open it up to Q&A and a discussion with you. Thank you everyone for attending. Miigwech Tapuina Naskaman. Over to the Q&A. Keep the recording going, sorry. Keep the recording going, Adam. We want to keep it going for note purposes. So thank you, folks. Tremendous. I got 34 minutes. We said we wanted to do it between 30 and 35. So well done, 34 minutes. Let's open it up to comments and questions that you might have. Bernard, do you want to, you sent me a note earlier. Bernard was one of the members of the working group. So was, Tim. Tim was on the working group. Tim Doss from Executive Director with BSAC. So Bernard, over to you first.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Terlyn and Daniela and Derek. It's been very enjoyable to be part of this group. But first, I'd want to inform everybody that I'm from Dalhousie University, and Dalhousie University operates in the unceded territories of the Mi'kmaq, Wolastoqey, and Pescatawamukati peoples. These are sovereign nations, hold inherent rights as the original peoples of these lands, and we each carry collective obligations under the Peace and Friendship Treaties. Section 35 of the Constitution Act 1982 recognizes and affirms Aboriginal and treaty rights in Canada. We also recognize the African Nova Scotians who've been here for over 400 years. And I also wanted to point out, so while I was part of the working group, I was the director of our business school. I no longer am, but in my new role, I am the director of our Inclusion Foundation. And the mandate of this is equity, diversity, inclusion, accessibility, and decolonization. So all of this falls within things that we want to achieve and everything that Luminary and Indigenous Works wants to achieve. I want to start by giving a little example about why this survey is necessary. I've been teaching a course for a while with my colleagues called Doing Business in Emerging Markets. We go to different parts of the world. Export Development Canada supports it, mostly undergrads, and then MBAs join. We had 49 applicants for about 12 to 14 seats. So the top selected, top students in our programs, undergrad and grad, join. For the first time ever, we have 2 students of Indigenous backgrounds, one from Mi'kmaq and the other, I think, Métis. They didn't quite say so. When we interviewed the students, they said, well, the person who was Mi'kmaq or who was Mi'kmaq said, well, once I finish, I want to go back to community and open a store and sell cigarettes. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Midway to the course, we were going to Vietnam and Indonesia. He says, I no longer want to do that. I want to look at fisheries. I want to look at so many things. He's going to travel with us to, he and the other one is a girl, young woman. They're going to travel with us to Vietnam and Indonesia and look at the different opportunities that are there in textiles, fisheries. And I said, yeah. So that transformation happened through the course. I said, okay, sure. He no longer, he may still operate a cigarette store, but his mind is broadened. So what that did, and not all students will self-disclose when they're saying this. So the survey provides something that Terlyn mentioned earlier about benchmarking. But before that, we need a baseline. We need to know where we are. Across Canada, colleges, polytechnics, institutions, universities, whatever the size, they all will be at different places in where they have students from Indigenous backgrounds in their programs, especially business programs. The other places we're not concerned right now. It's all about business schools and faculties of management. Only when we know where we are as a baseline can we then move ahead, create a benchmark, and create improvements. So this becomes extremely important strategically for not just research and innovation and collaboration, but basic curriculum design. How are we? And we've recognized this here and everywhere else with the help of Kelly and his team and his going around the country telling people the very institutions that were barriers to entry just are now have to decolonize themselves in order to allow for students to come in and thrive. So the winds are changing. He mentioned the Trump era. There, people here in Canada are swaying, and I've asked my dean, Mike, what is your commitment to this, Mike? And he says, we are committed to this. And that's what we need. We need our deans to be committed to this, and that way we can continue to do the work. So that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to say how critical this is at various levels, from the undergrad, from first years to third years to graduate students. We have our first PhD student who's likely, at least one student who's of Indigenous background that we're going to admit in the fall. So it starts slowly, but steadily we need to go. So I hope that
Thank
was
you.
a good introduction, Kelly.
Well, Bernard, I like the way you wove the multidisciplinary. We're talking about health, food as fisheries, and the business school leadership. So
Yep.
Who else is interested in fisheries? And I would say yes. I mean, I think it is our sort of moral duty to get people not to run cigarette stores. I mean, this is about well-being, right? So
Right.
Well done. Very, very good baseline. Any other comments or questions from any people? Mandy.
Thank you, Kelly. So I understand that our dean for Athabasca University was sent the survey access code to the survey. How many other people within our institution were also sent a code, and does each person that sent the survey get their own unique code? I guess what I'm trying to sort of understand is like, because I think it was Terry Lynn earlier that mentioned that it is going to be a collaborative approach to responding to the survey. And so I can envision that there will be several meetings happening within our institution for all of those that are involved in our Indigenous business programs to answer those questions. And I'm just trying to determine logistically how we make that happen.
Okay, so the answer is Malates sent just to the deans. So we had the deans list. Again, we collaborated with BSAC and ACSB. So only one email went. We are hoping and expecting the dean would then send it down to various VPs of academics, whoever would be sort of a responsible, and it might be a team of people at the institution. So there's the answer. It went to the dean. Yes, it will be. We think it's going to be in a staged approach. And so that slide that Daniela focused on, where there's like, I think 9 different stages or areas, you're going to be able to send those off to different people or different areas, right? So it breaks it down. Smaller groups can focus on certain, including, the institution itself. So some of the business schools will reach out to the larger institution on some metrics and some numbers, right? Because the university perhaps holds those. So that's why it was designed that way. But I think what you're also flagging is that we got to make sure the deans do open it, read it, and send it on to people, right? So we're going to be sending a reminder, and we're going to send a recording, this recording, to all the deans to say, here's a recording that you can share with your leadership at your school. Is that helpful?
Great.
Yeah.
Yes. So just, sorry, one further clarification. So with the survey access code that was provided to the deans, that same access code will allow multiple people to access the same survey.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Correct. Derek? Yeah. Danielle's nodding. Yeah. So it's your code. You can share it with 2, 10, whoever you need to be engaged and involved. I was just going to add that, Dr. Michael Michalowicz from Ted Rogers School of Business, one of the 2 people you can use as a resource in addition to Tasha, he was very instrumental, Bernard, right on the working group, because they did a comprehensive survey of all the departments at TMU. Toronto Metropolitan. So it was comprehensive. So we had input from that. We had input from Athabasca, from Teresa Rose, right? She, did the survey of business school websites. So we had some interesting starting points to build this out. And your dean was one of the deans that actually reviewed it as part of the beta testing, which was great. Any other comments or questions before we bring this to a close? You can always ask, you can always reach out to us, but like I said, we're looking forward to supporting you and moving this along. Well then, we're going to bring this to a close. Thanks to the team for a great job. Thank you to all of you. And Luminary Malatest, we're really committed to supporting this. And as I think you saw through those examples, the instrument, the data, the findings, the baseline, the benchmarking that Vinod talked about, it's going to be a catalyst for growing the ecosystem. And so we look forward to collaborating, co-creating, and working with you to grow the Indigenous innovation ecosystem. So, Tapuin and Askaman, truly from my heart, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.